This is RivianRex, and I am an owner of the Rivian R1T. I'm not a pro driver. I'm going to take it out on this track. I'm going to be following this Jeep. This is a modified Jeep with high clearance, and wherever it goes, I'm going to follow as well. So again, I'm just a Rivian owner. I'm driving my R1T, which is a $84,000 as equipped, $90,000 after the XPEL paint protector. I'm set in off-road and in the highest clearance. These are my settings I'll be driving today. And I'm going to share with you some of the pros and some of the cons. Probably the best pro, in my view, is this camera. This camera really takes away any of those blind spots where you can't see over the hood. And it makes driving it a lot more fun, safer, easier. It's just an amazing vehicle to drive. And check out this approach angle here. This is what it looks like from the GoPro camera sitting over the pedal. Here, I could not see where I was going down until I got pretty much to the water. But on the camera view, as I'm looking at it in the same exact drive, I don't really have any blind spot. I can see the descent the entire way down into this puddle here. So definitely that is a huge pro in terms of my experience with the Rivian. The second pro that I talk about is the approach and departure angles. They did just a phenomenal job on this vehicle. Yes, there are some vehicles with better approach and departure angles. And in fact, the SUV version, the R1S, will have a little bit better angles than the truck that I'm driving, the R1T. But still, it's pretty freaking amazing. I was just really also impressed by the type of rocks I could go over. And that brings me to the next pro. The camera, if you look to the left or the right, the ability to really see where that tire is at, gauge how wide the track is, and put the tire just inside of where the rocks are, another big pro that makes driving this off-road awesome. It also makes parking it, even just with a curve, a lot easier. So another thing that I really just enjoyed about the R1T and the camera setup. So let me speed up the track a little bit more. This is not the 2 to 7 miles an hour I was driving most of the time, but just to take you to some of the type of terrain that we were covering as I followed this Jeep through what's called Trail 800 in the Dee Flats area near Mount Hood, Oregon. You can check out the angles that some of the vehicles getting, some of the rocks it's going over. Again, pretty impressive stuff from what my experience off-roading in terms of what this could do and how confident I felt doing it. The power and the torque is just amazing. I mean, just really didn't feel like there was any place where it was going to get stuck. Now, I do have a whole complement of safety equipment, and I have that listed over on a website I put up, realidn.com, and you can see my whole gear list, Max Tracks and Snatch, plus the Rivian recovery kit, etc. But I didn't have any problems with this trip at all. And one of the cons is every time you get out of the vehicle, as I'm doing right now, and put the vehicle in park, and then return to the vehicle and get back into drive, if you just push it down the lever into drive, as we get really used to doing in our normal use of this vehicle, it drops you out of the highest clearance setting. It drops you out of off-road. It puts you back into all-purpose. And that, from my view, is definitely a con. And I moved too quickly there. I put it in drive, and so I missed saying stay in off-road. Now I have to re-hit off-road, re-hit the highest setting, get it back up there. And this is a con because, frankly, I wasn't patient enough to wait to make sure that it was all the way back up into the highest clearance. and I had a little bit of a problem, which I'll show you in a minute because of that feature. Now I'm getting back into the vehicle. I missed pressing back onto the highest mode, so now I have to go back into the menu, turn it back onto the highest setting. It's trying to lower it again, and I missed that fact that it did put in the highest setting. And as you'll see in a moment that I'm switching it back over here, but I should have stopped.
Slow down.
Yeah, that might not have happened if I had been in the highest setting. But, you know, I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm not going to have a vehicle that is completely blemish free. I'm using this to drive and have fun out and adventure. So that goes with the territory.
Ooh.
So one of the pros is that the vehicle can go up just about anything. I mean, look at climbing these rocks. I was watching that Jeep struggling in the same area, and you know, if you continue to press down the accelerator and you're not getting the power, you kind of just back off a little bit, maybe readjust the tire a bit, and with 935 foot-pounds of torque, it's going to get over just about anything. Now, the con that I am going to raise, though, is with those $3,500 20-inch all-terrain dark wheels, which the tires are great. I've had them in the snow. I've had them in a lot of different places. But there is a downside to them. They are beautiful, but they are, I'm a data scientist, so I'll use the term convex rather than concave. Maybe there's a better term for it, but basically, watch as I'm going over this rock here. Okay, so this front rock, not a problem, just adjusting the tire, getting the torque so it will pick up and get over it, no problem. But watch the back one. In the rear one, it slips off right there. And let's do this in slow motion. And you'll hear the sound. Ooh, yeah, that's not good. That's going to leave a mark. But it wouldn't have left a mark if I had Jeep after wheel markets like what the other person was driving in. These are concave. Or even my buddy who had the Gladiator, my neighbor, those concave a little bit, they go in a little bit. But that's not the case really with my vehicle. So let me turn to my wish list. I'd love to have a pitch and roll gauge and a mirror fold button on the instrument cluster that was with the cameras optimized for off-roading. I'd love to have some rock bars like the Toyota Tacoma that I drove with recently, some rock sliders like the one sold here or under $1,000. That would have helped reduce a little bit of this damage here, which isn't much, but still I'd much feel more secure with those as well. Let me end with a pro. I love the onboard compressor. And Pro, at 8 miles per kilowatt with this kind of slow crawling, I thought was pretty good. So that was my trip on Trail 800.